Richard Fitzwilliams is a royal commentator and film critic who's given over 1,000 TV interviews and is known for his expertise in the British honour system. And he's on the line with us here just now. How are you today?
Looking forward to what I think will be a very interesting King's Birthdays honours, which is be released later today, and also, of course, to the King's official birthday being celebrated.
Yes.
It was a tradition that began with George II in 1748. He also had a birthday, as King Charles has in November, and it's rather a wonderful tradition whereby you have this summer spectacle, and then you have the royal family in the iconic pose on the Buckingham Palace balcony.
And it looks like it's going to be great weather for it as well.
Well, the weather is very important, and also the fly past that was largely cancelled for the coronation. That will occur tomorrow because, as you say, the weather will permit it, and I think there's something like 60 aircraft involved. So,
wow.
It'll be very substantial.
And this is actually the first time in 30 years that every regiment of the household division will be featured in Trooping the Colour. So does this make it a particularly exciting year?
I think it will be significant, particularly there are reports that King Charles will be saluting on horseback outside Buckingham Palace when the march past at the end. So it will be something that people will be fascinated by worldwide. Remember, the Queen is now Colonel of the Grenadier Guards. The Prince of Wales is the Colonel of the Welsh Guards. The Princess of Wales is the Colonel of the Irish Guards, and Princess Anne, Colonel of the Blues and Royals, and Duke of Edinburgh, also the Reserve Regiment of Guards. So there should be a full royal turnout, and who knows, we may have a few surprises.
Yes. And what do you think the role of Trooping the Colour is kind of, I suppose, symbolically? Because I guess most people maybe don't think too much about military and stuff. They just watch it and go, oh, this is spectacular.
Exactly. There used to be a specific purpose to it because, if you consider, say, the Battle of Barnet, you remember Shakespeare wrote The envious mist that so deceived their sight. What happened there was the colours of one of the participants, Warwick the Kingmaker, couldn't mistook their own side for the enemy and attacked them. And the importance of, firstly, of colours and of banners and so forth was to distinguish in the fire and fury and chaos of battle one side from another, so that, in fact, when a colour was trooped down the line, which happens in Trooping the Colour, it's linked to this because it's particularly important. Otherwise, you might very well, fire on your own side or attack them, and that has from time to time happened. So colours were battlefields until 1881, which is the last time, and they date from the medieval tradition of, as I say, various barons and so forth, aristocrats had banners to distinguish their particular, their side, their regiment or whatever, and it developed from there. And you had some companies having several colours subsequently, and then the number got limited. And the colour is important. It's presented by the sovereign. The 1st Battalion Welsh Guards are Trooping the Colour, and they had their colour presented in 2015. It has military honours, and it's very special for the regiment.
And of course, the pomp and pageantry dates back 200 years. Has it evolved somewhat over those years, or is it still kind of the same tradition?
Well, of course, it's now every year, and it's supposed to have begun at the time of Charles II, and subsequently with the Georges, the last king, in fact, to lead troops into battle was George II at Dettingen. The way this ceremony has developed, there are similarities because they have the inspection and the march pasts, the way the colours trooped, and also the so-called spin wheel, which is not written down anywhere, but musicians perform a very important turn, and that is something that's the garrison sergeant sergeant major only who knows this, and it's passed down hand to mouth, passed down by word of mouth from the various participants. You've also got the cavalry, which is very, very popular, and you've got the marches, the more Welsh music, of course, with the participation of the Welsh Guards, and also Welsh themes to it.
And these manoeuvres that they do, I guess they can be quite difficult.
Well, some of the manoeuvres are relatively simple, but when for example, the monarch inspects the troops and then the bands play, then the colours presented and it's trooped down the line. Then there's the march past in quick and slow time, and also you've got the spin wheel, and then you've got the cavalry, and then you've got also the march back to the palace and the changing of the guard there, and then you've got the balcony appearance, and subsequent to that we've got the fly past. So it's not so much complexity, but of course the drilling, the television cameras can very cruelly pick up where the periods where you have, say, dressing, which is not as good as it might be and so forth, the camera is actually placed. So the Queen, I think that the late Queen, there will be undoubted tributes to her, because what we'll see undoubtedly is, well, everyone will have their memories. It was under Elizabeth II that it became so iconic. It was the picture of, or photograph of her on the horse Burmese given to her by the Canadian Mounties, that I think it was a very romantic image. And that was a particular favourite of mine when I grew up, and a very large number of people. So the Queen and the extraordinary way that the British monarchy is the world's most high-profile royal family, all of this has led to the trooping, the colour and the balcony appearance being so significant.
I suppose this is going to be the first full-on fly past of the King's reign, isn't it? Because, of course, as you mentioned, the coronation one wasn't as spectacular as we'd have hoped.
The coronation only had the Red Arrows and a few other aircraft. This will be, because they planned something very, very spectacular for the coronation, so that will add cachet to this. There's no doubt about it, because, again, the military links with the royal family are extremely important. So that's all three services. And yes, that will be something that will be very popular, and also popular in where the people will be able to enjoy it, because it'll be massive, clearly.
Yes. And of course, as you mentioned, the King's birthday honours will be released later today. Are you looking forward to finding out who's got an honour?
It's always interesting, and I'm glad to say that this time we haven't had any leaks. Yes, it's always fascinating. There are usually about 1,000+ names in the list, and what you normally find is something like 2/3 have links with philanthropy, which I think is very important. Also, there's roughly gender equality now, which has been something that's been very, very significant, that they've striven for this. And also, again, one of the benefits of our honour system is the fact that you've got grades for the various honours, whether it's the Royal Victorian Order with the King's Gift, or whether it's the Order of Michael and George, or the Order of the Bath and so forth, or the Order of the British Empire, which has not changed its name yet. The facts are that because they have grades, so they encourage initiative and incentive. And I think that's very, very important for this sort of list. Equally, sometimes people are honoured who shouldn't be. And so far as nation honours are concerned, putting it mildly, that's been a chaotic situation with former Prime Boris Johnson, and the fact that 8 of his lists were rejected by the House of Lords Appointments Committee.
Because the honour system often gets criticised by some people. So do you think that the resignation honours just makes that worse?
I think that the controversy over the resignation honours, there was also controversy over David Cameron. If you think back to Harold Wilson in 1975, the so-called lavender list, written, it was said, on Lady Falkender, his private secretary's lavender-coloured notepaper, that included some appalling choices. So the resignation honours list is not something that would have any popular appeal at all. And at the moment, it's in the well, I mean, it's right in the centre of ferocious controversy. And sometimes civil servants and individuals who shouldn't be honoured are honoured. Equally, the Honours Forfeiture Committee can remove honours if it believes they're taking the honour system into disrepute. There are always sort of some fields that get honours and haven't. David Beckham, for example, I'd have thought.
Yes, people have argued that David Beckham appears to be doing things that would give him one kind of deliberately. He looks like he wants one.
David Beckham is someone who's, well, I mean, whether it's on the football field or whether it's promoting British interests abroad, links to the Olympics and so on. I mean, if you want to make a list, you would make a very important and impressive list for David Beckham's behalf. But we do know that he wants a knighthood, and we know he hasn't got it. Now, whether specific reasons, of course there would be reasons. And presumably will be debated. But I think he'll get one. I think he should get one. He's hugely high profile. He has been a little unwise from time to time, so it depends how you balance these things up.
Do you think he'll get one today or just at some point in the future?
Well, I think it would be very nice if he got one today, because he's one of the most controversial names and one of the most high-profile names who's not on the list. And I think it'd be a very good beginning for the first King's Birthday Honours list.
And looking back to the coronation last month, what did you make of the whole event?
I thought it was very impressive. I think it combined tradition on the one hand with modernity on the other, and I think it was a successful balance. The only problem was the weather, of course, and but that is not, you couldn't obviously control. I think essentially it is a religious service, and essentially it was the king coming to serve, as he said. And I thought that William paid a touching tribute, and I thought the concert went very well. The whole weekend seemed well organised, with the weather regardless. I think also in our secular age, it doesn't do us any harm to see a magnificent church service. The Church of England, this was obviously an opportunity for the Archbishop, and he seized it to be more high profile than he's ever been. I think he did pretty well.
The weather, maybe you can't make it out on the telly much, so I suppose apart from the fly past, most people watching it didn't really care about the weather.
Well, I think, being down by Westminster Abbey myself the day before, there was the most ferocious downpour, and anyone out and people were camping out. Because remember, in 1953, firstly the Queen went to Westminster Abbey in the Gold Coach, and then subsequently the route back was 5 times the route that King Charles took. And people had more of a chance to see. I think some 3 million did, and of course that launched television. But here, yes, I don't think necessarily those who weren't affected by the weather were that worried, because you didn't see it on screen. But equally, it was a pity. Having said that, I think it was most successful, and I think also that the colours are very, very impressive. The ritual, no other royal family in the world is able to put on a show like this. And also, don't forget, you had representatives of over 2 countries.
Is the rain a sign of a good rain, if you'll pardon the pun, because it rained at the Queen's coronation, didn't it, back in 1953?
Yes, so the hope is you choose June, and the hope is that it won't rain. But
yes, that's true. So what was it that initially interested you in the royal family?
Well, I think it's a sense of tradition and history, the fact that royals throughout history have been absolutely fascinating. And also, as a film critic, I'm interested in lecture on films which include royals or portrayals of famous royals. That is fascinating too. And they have series, whether good or bad, such as The Crown, which also do this. The facts are that it's an absolutely unique institution, certainly in the world, and no other royal family has anything like the profile of the British. So that was the centre of my interest, and then subsequently an interest in other royal families, and general interest in history, and also a fascination with the way the royals negotiate the 21st century, because is, in a way you can argue it's anachronistic, and yet you can argue it works.
And what do you think about the monarchy's place today? Because most people are still in favour of it in this country, but if you look at opinion polls, there's a kind of generational divide. Do you think it will last into the future?
I think we've had a monarchy for over 1,000 years. The one exception has been the Civil War. I think it will change. The whole point of an institution of that sort is it must adapt. It's not that it must be in front of public opinion or indeed abreast of it. It simply mustn't be too far behind it. So, yes, there is an age gap now in attitudes, and that's largely because of the activities of the Sussexes.
In what way do you feel the activities of the Sussexes has perhaps damaged the reputation or the image of the monarchy?
Well, I think it's been very damaging because they were they were the royal hope. So far as the Commonwealth is concerned, so far as a more contemporary monarchy, or a more contemporary-looking monarchy is concerned, but there's no doubt at all that the way the plan was to have the Sussexes as the sort of modern face of the British monarchy, and certainly Meghan, in fact, you divorce a person of colour, someone who's an actress, someone also who I felt could deal with people, deal with the red carpets and so forth. It turned out to be completely different, and I think the fact that it hasn't worked has definitely damaged the monarchy, and that's why you've got the standoff at the moment. There's no doubt at all it's very damaging.
What do you think about the future? Do you think this standoff will continue, or do you think at some point there will be reconciliation, or maybe people's perceptions, the public's perceptions about what's going on could change one way or another?
Well, as far as the public's concerned, I mean, they've very little support in Britain, but they're after profile in the wider world. So far as the Oprah interview, that was the damaging interview. Allegations of racism, but also allegations dealing with Meghan's mental health and so forth. That's very serious. They've been absolutely ruthless, and the royal family can't answer back point by point. So far as the future's concerned, the monarchy will alter, it will adapt, and it will remain, in my opinion.
Now, for the very soon future, how do you plan to watch Trooping the Colour? Are you going to be watching it on the telly, or will you be there in the crowds?
No, I should be watching it on television.
Nice. Is that the best way to see it, because you get to see so many angles, or have you been to see it in public before?
Oh, I've many times attended it, but I do prefer television because I'll probably be doing commentaries and things myself, so it's important.
Yes. Well, where are we able to keep up to date with you if we want to do that?
Well, follow my website, www.richardfitzwilliams.com.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for joining us today, and have a great Trooping the Colour tomorrow.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.